Oh, going to go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and admit Rachel. Hi, Rachel, Mackenzie, Joseph. Glad to see you guys. Rachel, is your audio working this time? If you're talking, we can't hear you.
It's Rachel. Can you all hear me?
Yes, Rachel, yay.
Awesome. Yay. Perfect. I finally figured it out. Hooray. Happy to be here.
You did such an amazing job last time not having any audio, just putting everything into chat. So that was that you figured it out on the fly. That was great.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're gonna give it just a couple more minutes. If I think everybody has their participant icon renamed, which is super helpful for us to be able to capture who's in attendance. Give it just one more minute as people continue to trickle in. And Rhonda, Rihanna, Sage, welcome back. Give it one more minute and then we'll get started. I want to be respectful of your time, because I know you all had a busy day today, I'm sure. So I appreciate you joining us tonight. Well, let's get started. So welcome back to the work group. We really very much appreciate your time and feedback as we develop the outdoor nature-based rule set. As a reminder, the work group meetings are being live streamed onto our agency's YouTube channel. You're not required to be on camera, but if you do put something into chat, Abby Strom will be reading your chat just so that we can make sure that we capture everything for people who may be watching this meeting. So really quickly, quick introductions. My name is Carol Peterson, and I'm going to be facilitating this meeting. I'm with the Child Care Licensing Division in the policy unit. And I'm going to pass it over to Abby Strom, who is going to be assisting me tonight. So, Abby?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Abby Strom. My pronouns are she, her, and I am Carol's colleague, also with the Child Care Licensing Division within the policy unit. And a lot of my job right now is rule writing and rule revision for our licensed child care facilities. So I'm happy to be a part of this group and collect your very, very, very valuable feedback as we move forward with licensing outdoor programs. So thanks so much for spending your evening with us.
And Ronnie?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Ronnie Pham. I work with the Child Care Licensing Division, and I am going to be off camera because I'm just concentrating very hard to make sure I capture all your feedback. So thank you for being here. Let's bring it to Rhonda.
Rhonda Shuck from Rogue River, and I'm also the union rep here as well. So thank you for doing the meeting.
And Joseph?
Joseph Flaherty from Art and Science Kids in Cave Junction.
Hey, and Rachel?
Rachel Turner from Eugene, Oregon, at Hazelwood Outdoor Kindergarten. And tonight I have the opposite situation where I can talk but not type. So thanks for bearing with me, everyone.
You're fine. We experience technical difficulties all the time, so we're a flexible group. We're just glad you're here. Mackenzie?
Hi there, I'm Mackenzie Purdom from Newport, Oregon. I'm with Recess Outdoor Adventure School. Thank you for having me.
Rayanna? Rayanna, if you're talking, you're on mute. She may be stepped away. How about Sage?
Hi, I'm Sage. I'm in Curry County.
Hi, Sage. And Rebecca?
Hi everyone, Rebecca here from in Salem, Oregon, and I'm excited to be here again. Thank you.
Yeah, great. We have one more participant popping on. And Kendall, we are just doing introductions. If you'd like to introduce yourself, and we'll get started after you're done.
Yes, hi. I'm Kendall Sweeney, and I'm also here with my partner, Ryder Talcott. We're the owners of Mini Mavericks Preschool in Bend, Oregon. And we're a half-day nature-based program. Right now, we're just a recorded-based program, and we're hoping, just to follow along for the ride.
Great. Awesome. So I'd like to start with going through the meeting agenda. So right now we're at reviewing the meeting agenda, which is the second point here. We're going to review the group norms, and that's something we'll do every meeting just to help ground us in the work. We're going to go over the work group scope and format again. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time going through the follow-up and feedback from last session, which we worked with a definition for the outdoor nature-based programs, definition of the outdoor nature-based curriculum, and then items available for review and required postings. We will start with some new discussion topics. We're going to discuss the risky play, which and cover some supervision policies and safety measures around that. Staff-child ratios. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and go ahead and talk about active supervision and risk benefit analysis tool. And that's the tool that I sent out in my email with the topic list on Thursday. So with that, I'd like to transition into the group norms. So so just as a reminder, we'd like to allow opportunities for all voices to be heard. So we'll take space and make space, remain focused on the scope of the work group, be open for respectful discussion, and have an open mind and ask clarifying questions to confirm understanding. We want to encourage and honor individual perspectives and truths, and realize that all experiences are valuable and contribute to our shared understanding. Please use the raise hand function or chat for comments. Practice active listening. Listen to understand and give time to reflect before responding. And then to seek commonality. We may disagree, which is okay because we all have different experiences and opinions, but we want to focus on being guided by our shared commitment to this rule set. So with that, so as I went over with during the last session, the community work group is the first stage of engagement where specific topics are presented and discussed with the work group participants. And the feedback that we receive will help support the development of rule language of specific topics. The work group topics will be sent out prior to each meeting, similarly to Thursday when I sent out all the information to you. And then you'll have an opportunity to provide feedback or make suggestions on where possible changes can be made. Some guiding questions and considerations are, what are the potential impacts for those changes? How would this look in an outdoor environment? Keep in mind that some programs are strictly outdoors and some are a hybrid. They may be inside and outside. Balance possible financial impacts, available research on recommended best practice, and available resources. As discussed in the previous slide, CCLD will review the feedback received during this work group meeting, and then we're going to bring that topic back to the following meeting and discuss what any of the draft rule language that we came up based on your feedback. So with that, I would like to start off with the definition, feedback, and follow-up. So we want to start with the outdoor nature-based definition and the outdoor nature-based philosophy and curriculum. So what we heard from you last time was that you suggested that the definition needed to be clear, what buildings or outdoor space need approval to use, the ages of children in care, and what an OMB curriculum looks like to distinguish the program as an outdoor nature-based program rather than a program that spends the majority of its time outside. So our proposal for outdoor nature-based childcare means an agency or agency-offered program that enrolls only preschool through school-age children. And by preschool is defined in our child care center rules as 36 months to attending kindergarten. And the outdoor nature-based program provides childcare primarily in an outdoor nature space approved by the department and utilizes a philosophy where nature is central to children's learning and development. An outdoor nature-based childcare may utilize indoor space of a building for non-regular use, emergency use, or to meet the biological needs of children and staff with indoor bathroom facilities. In the building, an indoor space must be approved by the local building department, environmental health, and fire marshal for that particular use. The programs must submit all approvals to the department when seeking approval for use of the indoor space. What's important to remember is that the building, land, or area and its use need to be approved prior to receiving an OMB license for the location. And this is really similar to what we require for all licensed childcare centers. Other agencies do need to be involved with licensing to ensure the intended space that may be used meets all the building, safety, and sanitation requirements. And one important aspect to remember is that a licensing specialist is going to help support and walk you through this process in order to help guide you with obtaining the necessary approvals during the pre-certification or pre-licensing visit. So does anybody have any feedback or initial feelings on the draft rule language that we developed?
I guess my only question, I was trying to raise my hand, but I keep not being able to do it, is how would that affect a nomadic program?
So that's a really good question, and we address the nomadic programs on the next slide. But that's a great question, Rhonda. Yes, Kendall.
I guess the only feedback that we would have there, and it's just our personal experience, if we do have to follow all the same guidelines for facilities as childcare facilities as they are right now, it's really hard to find a building that supports outdoor, like there's not enough space in bed per se. Like it's really hard to find a property that would be in the zoning that would also support nature-based learning, but also fit into the category of finding a building that would be for, child care facilities, if that makes sense.
It does. It makes a lot of sense. That's great feedback. So, and are you speaking toward more in regards to a hybrid in like using a building and outside, or are you planning on thinking that your program is going to be strictly outside?
Even if it's strictly outside right now, we find it very difficult because it does still have to meet the childcare licensing requirements, even if it's 100% based outside right now. Like if we wanted to use bathrooms or something, they have to be then fit by the fire. I'm not sure the sanitary, but sometimes that's all that there is,
Oh, you're kind of breaking it, Kendall. I'm sorry. Mackenzie?
For those of you who didn't find the raised hand, it's under reactions. Yeah, so I second Kendall's concern as well. I know that when we moved from the Toledo Public Library to Newport after COVID, and we originally were under, just renting the library space in Toledo. And then we did have the fire department and stuff like that come in and of course make sure that that's a public space that would be utilized for emergency use or for holiday crafts and those kind of things during the really wet season. So that wasn't a problem. But when we moved to Newport, I had a really hard time trying to even get a business license in the town, and eventually was told that in the city of Newport, I do not need a business license because they only license a building. And so I have a business license for the state, but not within city limits, as they would not be able to have the fire department come and check because they don't have the walls to check. And so I know that we're nomadic. I'm excited to see what's happening on the next slide. However, I am just curious about like zoning and things like that. Because zoning for in the same boat as Kendall, as there's the land that would be commercial property in Newport that would be appropriate for a childcare center is not a nature-based space. It's very much commercial, like in town. And so the zoning would not work in our county. I've looked. So yeah, I've looked to become a center before this House bill was even a possibility, and to find a commercial space that was even adjacent to that. I don't have, $3 million to get oceanfront property. Right. So that's financially limiting. Yeah. So any of like those approvals, I guess my question would be, is do we need the fire department to come if we don't have a building? Because it's my understanding they will not come. So at what point how do we work with that licensor to explain that and work with the fire department? I'm not sure what to do in that situation when they've said no.
And I don't know, Abby, do you want to
Oh, thanks, Carol. I we definitely understand and have heard the struggles not only from this group, but also, childcare providers across the state in regards to finding space and space that's appropriate for and has been approved for childcare, both from zoning and planning, as well as, occupancy and building codes and things like that. And we have been in close contact with DCBS, specifically around the unique needs of outdoor nature-based programs. And I think, and Carol, I don't know if you discussed this with the group last time, because I apologize, I wasn't here, just around, it's about getting approval for in this scenario, the way that the definition is written right now, around whatever you're going to use that building for. So if you're not going to use that building for, regular classroom use at any time, you would only need to get approval for that specific use. So like just using the bathroom. And there are a lot of nuances within that. We know, and the Office of the Child Care Licensing Division is not an expert in those requirements. But our understanding is that those approvals are different than going for a commercial building that would be primarily used indoor 8 hours a day for childcare. And there are, of course, different occupancy ratings for that. So it's really the approval is really narrowly focused that you would be looking for, depending on what you would be looking to use that building or space for. The fire marshal's job is to kind of enforce and work within the building codes as well. So there would be, if you didn't have any walls and you didn't have a building, then there probably we would work with a licensing specialist to, well, they don't need this approval because they aren't using a building at all for anything. I think that there are opportunities to look at what the unique needs of each program are in terms of that. I don't know if that helps folks. We do have a questions in the chat that I'll just, and some comments that I will read, Carol, if that's
Yes.
Okay. So Kendall says the only spaces available seem to not be zoned for childcare. So again, it's really speaking to the zoning struggles. And then Joseph asked, would park space be approvable? Our parks all have pit toilets. Will pit toilets and porta potties be allowed?
Joseph, I don't know why they wouldn't be, but I that's my knee-jerk reaction because as I mentioned in our first meeting, we're patterning our rules off of Washington. And Washington's rules have everything from an actual bathroom to leave no trace and everything in between. So I do not know of any reason why we would not allow for a pit toilet. But that's a good question. Is there any other comments or questions, Abby?
We do have Mackenzie says, oh, great, thank you. And then fantastic, thank you. Love that all types of bathrooms will be allowed.
We yep, we hope. So moving on now, since we did have quite a bit of conversation regarding nomadic programs, and then looking at how the nomadic outdoor nature-based programs fit within this definition. So we did reach out to Washington State last week, and they did during their pilot, their outdoor nature-based pilot, they did pilot a few nomadic programs and some models within that. And this is what their pilot revealed. That all areas utilized by the nomadic program need to be reviewed and licensed to ensure health and safety of the space. If a program moved, they needed to have a license for that location. A program could have multiple licenses for different locations, which allows for seasonal usage. So I recall someone pointing out that during the rainy season at the coast, they're not able to use a portion of the space, so they use a different space. So both of those spaces would need to be licensed and approved in order to use them. Land use agreements and other approvals are needed for operating, and by designating a location, it protected the program from being displaced since they had an agreement in place. So that was something that was really something that was important when we were looking at how the nomadic programs could possibly fit in, is also thinking about the protection of your space so that you're not displaced too. But how this could look, you could have a designated meeting spot or a home base approach for arrival and departure. That area would be the licensed area, and then go on excursions or field trips during the day. If an OMB program would like to have multiple locations, you will need to apply for a license for each location. And the intent of this is to ensure that each location is a healthy and safe environment and meets the outdoor nature-based licensing requirements. So I hope that strikes a compromise from the nomadic to the what we're kind of envisioning for the outdoor nature-based. Does anybody have any reflections on this information? Yes, Mackenzie.
Okay, just to clarify, every field trip would need to arrive at the home base and then depart from there in a transportation, like in a vehicle, and then return to that home base. Is that true?
How exactly that would look is still a little, we're figuring that out, but at a minimum, we need to have a home base to license. Not only to license for health and safety, but it's important for licensing specialists to be able to fulfill their job with doing monitoring visits, unannounced visits, things like that, so that they can have a general idea of when you're going to be at that space and be able to go ahead and do their visits. So whether it is just upon a meeting spot during pickup or drop off, and then you make arrangements with the parents to pick up at a different location. I think we're still kind of figuring that out, but you can go on excursions or field trips. So again, that was a way for us to kind of compromise with that nomadic aspect.
Okay, so a financial impact of that would be a $65,000 vehicle. And then transportation at about 140, I think, a month for insurance, depending on the vehicle insured. That's a significant amount of investment. So if I can give feedback on that, that is something that we looked at doing for a home base. But to have that type of a vehicle, and then that's not including all of the car seats and booster seats that would be needed. Yeah, that's really expensive. So how would I understand the need of needing to do a surprise visit. I think those are very valuable. Would it be maybe a compromise would be to maybe include licensing on what locations you'll be at that week? What happens if you're a nomadic program that changes spots every single day, for example, and the parents drop off and pick up at everything, like how at every location? How would that type of a program be able to exist? I know that there's some out there. I know that we travel regularly.
And so,
Yeah.
Izzy, how does your program currently how does it operate right now?
So we're nomadic, and so we have a location that we like to have as our home base. However, that's not where we end up being most of the time. So for example, today we were at the Oregon Coast Aquarium. The parents dropped off at the Puffin lot by the shelter. Parents get notified every week where we'll drop off. So there's photos and directions of exactly where the meetup and drop off will be for every new location. And then let's see, on Thursday, we have a field trip with the Lincoln City Bird Alliance partner called Swifty out of Yachats. And so we're going to meet at the Hatfield Marine Science Center there on Thursday to meet that guest speaker. And then tomorrow we're going to Yaquina Head Outstanding Natural Area to see seal pups and to go birding. Last week we were on a field trip to the South Jetty to go on a forest adventure. So this week there was a lot of changes. Other times we'll be in a spot for a regular amount of time, particularly in September and October when we're getting to know the students. And once the students are able to go on that next level, we have seen the skills master, then we can go on to that next field trip location. We also do it based on weather and tides.
So what we'll do is we'll take your concerns back to the rulemaking group. We've captured the information in the notes, and then we'll continue trying to kind of meet a compromise. Abby, I don't know if there's any comments in the chat.
In the chat, just something from Joseph that said the field trip idea may work as long as families can provide transportation. I see, yeah, more raised hands. Yep, Kit.
Kit, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I have it on my phone and struggling with the app. So the public lands access and the land use agreement piece, we have heard, we've been gathering information from states about this process, and I am juggling a couple of things at the moment, being over on the East Coast, and I'm wondering whether it's possible to follow up and share some of that information after the fact. Is that
Oh, absolutely.
great? I want to make sure that we're able to get you the information that would be helpful, and also realize that I don't have all of it directly on hand right now, but great.
And Kit, I didn't see you pop on. Do you want to introduce yourself really quick?
Sure thing. My name is Kit Harrington. I am the Senior Policy Advisor for the Natural Start Alliance. And we have been funded, we've been working with states around the country to support outdoor nature-based licensing. It's something that I've been involved in since my days in Washington at the Fiddleheads Forest School and with the Washington Nature Preschool Association. And so it's so exciting and such an honor just to be able to continue to support you all right now at the moment. There's so much happening around the country. As a matter of fact, Colorado just passed its licensing bill a few hours ago. So we're in the midst of some really exciting and powerful changes, and hopefully the opportunity for states to really support and learn from one another in this process.
Thanks, Kit. Abby, are there any other comments in the chat?
Nope. I think we're ready.
Okay. So the next, I'd like to move us on to the outdoor nature-based curriculum philosophy feedback and follow-up. So what we heard last session was that the curriculum should be free-flowing, emergent, and not prescriptive to allow for flexibility in learning. We did remove the reference to nature-based curriculum from the OMB definition and changed it to read, utilizes a philosophy where nature is central to children's learning and development. We're proposing to just use the general statement for nature-based curriculum in the definition of the OMB programs, but have elements of the curriculum in a section of the rules that outline in general terms what the curriculum should contain. Our intent is it's not to prescribe what a curriculum what a program must use in terms of a curriculum, but rather provide a flexible framework for programs to use as a guide for when they are developing their curriculum. So our proposal is that the OMB programs have a written curriculum philosophy that describes the planned daily activities related to child development and how that philosophy is implemented. The OMB programs must include in their curriculum philosophy how nature is central to their curriculum and how learning and being outdoors in a nature setting impacts the OMB program's daily activities. The curriculum philosophy must address all age groups being served. The curriculum may include, but is not limited to, how children develop emotionally, socially, cognitively, and physically in nature and through nature-based experiences and reasonable risky play, what OMB programming looks like, or areas of focus that meets the children's developmental abilities, interests, cultural, and individual needs, and how the OMB provider is inclusive for all children in the group, regardless of disabling or limiting conditions, and staff must be trained on OMB programs philosophy and implementation. So any initial feedback on our draft?
It's Rachel. I apologize. I'm not able to raise my hand. I just wanted to a question came to mind. So for licensed childcare that has an indoor space, are these proposed guidelines equivalent or similar? What I'm feeling is that I'm not sure that there are curriculum guidelines necessarily for indoor programs, and so I'm curious about that discrepancy. Does that make sense?
It does. And so when we're saying curriculum, I think you could crosswalk that to program of activities in a licensed childcare center, if that makes sense. So like,
Yeah,
you have a certified home, correct, Rachel?
correct. I've had all the types, but yes,
Yeah.
right, currently certified.
Right, right. And so within that, we have program of activity requirements where you have to show that you have certain the availability of certain program materials and different areas of interest. So it's similar to that.
Okay.
Does that help answer your question?
It does. And I think for folks who are currently recorded programs, which is the majority of folks on the call and the majority of ONB programs currently, yeah, I would just refer you to those, to the licensing rules so you have a sense. I think it can sound more onerous, if you will, than it might actually be. So I would encourage folks not to be, if it's similar to the indoor curriculum requirements, there's quite a bit of freedom left in as to how you interpret those guidelines. And so I just want to put that out there.
That's a great call out, Rachel, because that is definitely our intention is flexibility.
Yeah.
We want people to be able to basically operate develop their curriculum or program of activities of what suits their program.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any feedback, Abby? Any questions or?
Joseph says that he can work with the philosophy language, and that it works better than curriculum. And that I have an indoor license and I really enjoyed working with our inspector. We came through with a plan of activities that is flexible and easy to do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other comments, I'm going to move us forward to the program records and program policies. So the items, last time we talked about the items available for review and required postings follow-up. So what we heard from you is that posting licensing requirements would be difficult since oftentimes there's not an area to post items and adverse weather conditions can make it difficult to have items outside. So what we are proposing is to have a rule, the rule language state that an OMB program must have the following items available in a prominent and frequently visited location for the parents and public to view. So you can maintain your program information in a binder at your drop-off pickup location if the binder is visible to parents and staff. And this supports clear communication with staff and families of an OMB program's information, and it helps create a shared understanding of how your program operates. Any feedback on that? Does that sound workable? I see a couple heads nodding.
Joseph says that the binder works well for him or for us.
Thank you, Joseph. Mackenzie?
I really like that you took into consideration the amount of hiking we will do and not to carry a binder with us. So thank you for hearing us. I think it is important to have this on site. So in a vehicle, I am a little bit concerned about having it in view at all times. Like for drop off and pickup, like our drop off and pickup is at the exact time. So all the parents, have a 5-minute window in which they drop off their children, and then we go on a hike, and then again for pickup. So for me to go and unlock the vehicle, get that out, I would be taking my attention away from the children who I need to be supervising. The riskiest part of our job is in a parking lot or near a parking lot, in my opinion, or experience. And though we train the children very well to be careful around those locations and to stay seated until an adult comes and gets them, I am concerned that me going to go, or a staff member going to go get a binder and bring that out for pickup and have it visible at pickup would be distracting, away from the safety of children. Maybe having an understanding that people can come and get, have those at any point in time. I'd be happy to share that with anyone who comes by. I want to be transparent. But does that make sense?
Great feedback, and we'll capture that and take that back to the rulemaking group. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move us on.
Oh, Carol, there was one other comment from Kendall, just proposing another solution is that maybe you could laminate them and put them on magnets on them so that they are on your car when parents arrive. So just
Great.
post it up in the vehicle. Sounds like.
Okay. And so again, this is items can be stored in a binder or electronically. We do have some requirements. If records are stored electronic, they need to you need to have at least one staff member on site who can access any records that are stored in paper or electronic formats. The electronic records must be portable for use during an emergency evacuation. And if using electronic records, the center must have procedures in place to ensure prompt access, including an on or off-site electronic backup method to ensure access in the event of data loss. So, and it's important to remember the rationale for this is that the early care and education programs must keep correct records so that they can give quality care and protect the health and safety of children. Programs should store records in an easy to access place while also keeping information about staff and children confidential. So that kind of feeds into your comment, Mackenzie, what you were saying about transparency. It's just important that we can figure out a way to go ahead and have those records available for people so that they have a better understanding of what your program policies are. So I'd like to move us forward to the discussion topics. And so last time we did discuss a little bit, we started talking a little bit about risky play activities and what your specific programs go ahead and participate in. So during the meeting, tree climbing, tool use, berry eating, and water safety were mentioned. But I was also wondering if you did any other risky play activities, such as like plant foraging, climbing natural features, campfire activities. And if so, what safety measures and policies do you incorporate into these activities?
So I'll start us off from the chat. Joseph says that they have campfires and they do whittling.
Okay. And what safety measures and policies do you incorporate, Joseph?
I was typing it, but I'll just say, um, with whittling, I learned to start with potato peelers, and that I wouldn't give a child a knife unless they have learned how to use the potato peeler correctly. Um, the kids got to sit down to do any whittling. Um, Campfires. There's a lot of different programs that have different philosophies on that. So I don't know if the way we do it is the best way, but I do not let my students ever put anything in the fire. I do not let them put wood in the fire, feed the fire, move the sticks around. I do not let them poke at the fire. And I know I'll probably get some pushback on this call because I bet there's people on this call who let their kids like roast, a hot dog or a marshmallow or something like that. I don't. Um, I believe you could teach a preschooler how to correctly put wood on a fire, but I do not do that. So teaching the children, we have a little motto in my group that every activity requires instruction. If the kids are doing any activity at all, you really do have to teach them how to do the activity. I really do believe that. So that's the same thing as a fire or whittling or climbing a tree or climbing rocks. That requires instruction. So
Do you have those instructions in writing?
I do not.
Okay.
But all my staff have memorized all this stuff because we say it all the time.
Okay.
Like for example, the rule we have with tree climbing is twice your height. You know, but you gotta. I would never let a child do any whittling unless they're always pointing the blade away from their body and they're moving that knife or that potato peeler away from their body only.
Okay.
Things like that. But I don't know how easy or hard it would be to write down instructions for every single risky activity that kids do. The probably just I wouldn't say more importantly, but probably equally important is close adult supervision. And also part of adult supervision is really actually knowing your kids. And that's the thing. I don't know how you could really write that into a law because people always talk about building relationships with children in the trainings that we all go to. But yeah, what does that actually mean? I mean, you really have to know the child. And there's certain kids that I would just not let have a knife. I definitely agree with this thing about scissor use. Anyway, close supervision, good quality instruction. I think that's your best bet right there.
Great. Thank you, Joseph. Rhonda?
We don't do knives when we don't do fires, but as far as foraging goes, we teach the kids all different kinds of plant identification, and this last year was so prolific with mushrooms. We saw so many mushrooms, but our rule is always that the kids do not touch them. But we do take a collection of them, and we take pictures of them, and the teacher can with gloves, and they put them in the bucket, and then we bring them back and we make up an ID, but the kids are never to touch any mushrooms at all ever. So berries and things like that, because we have a massive amount of blackberries and whatnot. So we do have, they can't just eat anything. They have to show it to a teacher, and then we collect it. And we usually take it back because we have a pretty good classroom space as well. But that they can't put anything in their mouth, and they're not supposed to touch it without talking to the teacher first.
Great, thank you. Mackenzie?
Great questions. I echo a lot of what Joseph has said, and then Kendall, what she's saying as well. We do a variety of plant foraging and climbing on natural features. We have not used a campfire yet. And that leads me into the, part of what I think is important is what Joseph was saying is making sure that the children have those advanced skills. So starting them with something small, like using a potato peeler to whittle, make sure that you can then trust them with a knife. They have that movement, and that process down. So having those abilities to advance their skills as they are ready, and that's very individual based, I think is important. Of course, giving instruction is important. Always being within sight and hearing, and if they're climbing a tree, they have a spotter. All of those important things. Interacting with pets or animals, that is something that we do. If there's an opportunity to interact with them, so sometimes there'll be a puppy that comes, on the beach, and they come over to us and we ask the person, can we pet it? And then of course, like we teach the children how to pet the animal, what to look for in the signs of an animal being, comfortable with the person. Are they wagging their tail? Like, are they looking at you? Like those kind of things. Teaching them how the processes of being safe around animals or around climbing a tree, like looking for the broken tree branches, like, oh, this is a tree that has some branches, testing each branch before you put your weight on it. Those kind of things. I haven't used it yet. It came in the mail today, but Heidi at a school up in the Portland area is fabulous. And one of her teachers came up with a whittling tool. Let's see if I can turn on my camera real quick and show you. It is not sharp. I don't know if you can see me or not. But it is not sharp. It has a fun animal on it. This one happens to be orange and happens to have a moose carved in. And this blade is not sharp at all. Of course, it's, it could poke just like scissors would or a pencil could. But it is really doesn't cut the skin, and it's perfect for a child's hand. And so I'm really looking forward to whittling with this tool. And so that's kind of exciting. But yeah, my main point is we teach each child, just like Joseph said, we teach each child as a group, but also individually as they're ready to be advanced. And I would never, like our group this year isn't ready for fires. So, yeah, I can share the link as soon as I have one. Yeah, definitely. So this year we don't get to do fires, but hopefully next year we can. It's all depends on the individuals in the group and the group itself. If we have anyone who would be uncomfortable in that space and taking away from the attention, to make it to make it safe, so we wouldn't do it. So that's important. We play adjacent to bodies of water all the time. We're next to the ocean. We teach the kids how to read the tides, and we watch to see if there's sneaker wave alerts, and then we make sure that an adult is with them if they're near the water, or ankle deep in the water.
Okay.
We don't swim.
Okay.
So
do any of you get involved with any challenge courses with like school age children where it's a ropes or challenge course or anything like that that's higher than 48 inches at all? I take that as maybe a no.
And Carol, I just want to read what's in the chat, and several people have mentioned it. So Kendall says that campfires, whittling, tool use, shelter building, animal care, scrambling on rocks, and tree climbing. Sounds like those are some activities risky activities that children participate in. And then same as indoor schools with scissor use, we go through safety, correct use, and have natural consequences such as losing the privilege of using or losing a privilege when they are not making safe choices. They have protective gloves and aprons for whittling. There was a request to share the link for the whittling tool. And then Kit also shared some resources, including the Nature-Based Preschool Professional Practice Guidebook, and then also Washington State's Benefit Risk Assessment, which we are actually going to go over after the break. And then other resources on risky play. So there are a couple links in the chat too, if folks want to use those. And then now Mackenzie has put in, I think, the contact information for the person who makes the whittling tool as well. Can I ask a follow-up question, Carol? Are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
And this is for Joseph or anyone who really commented on this, and we're going to discuss this a little bit more, but when you say like close proximity to children, what does that, while they're doing these activities, and it might vary depending on the activity that they are participating in, what does that mean to you? What does close proximity mean to you?
Yeah, okay. So again, I don't know how the state of Oregon puts this stuff into law, honestly. It some children, close proximity means that I am literally touching that child. Okay. Some kids, I am not going to let them do anything risky unless I am like right there with them. Other kids, I know some of these kids I've known for years. I know their mom and dad. I've been to their house. You know, I really know these kids, and I know that tree they're climbing. I know what it looks like underneath it, and I know how good this kid is at tree climbing. And if they're only going up, 5 or 6 feet. Yeah, I might be 20 feet away. I'm still watching them. I still see what they're doing, but I'm not really worried about them. And so, close proximity for that kid might be 20 feet. Whereas some of these kids, I might be like right there, like right up on them. So it really, to me, the most important part is how well do you know this child, and that's, anyone who's done this kind of work with kids for years and years, the relationship you build with the child, that's kind of the entire ball game, really. And I don't know how you put that into a law.
Do you ever limit the number of children engaged in these activities so you can have that?
Yes.
Okay.
I do. I sometimes do.
Okay.
Yeah, I sometimes will say we're only going to do one kid per tree right now.
Okay.
We're only going to be climbing these 3 trees right now. We're only going to be doing this one tree. You guys can go dig in the sand for a while. There's a stump. It's not that risky actually, but there's a stump near us that the kids just love to jump off. Yeah, sometimes I'll be like 3 kids. That's it. Everybody else back off. You guys can go, dig in the sand or something. I do limit.
Okay.
But again, why would I limit? I do not, I don't envy you for having to write these laws, because it's got to be really, really hard to quantify with specific language something that is so nuanced.
It is, and yeah, we're doing the best we can. Kendall, you have your hand up.
Yeah. For us, like whenever we're doing, it's more about the activity rather than the child. And so if it is, a tree climbing, like we have our own rules around tree climbing. They know which trees are designated in the area that we play in that they're allowed to climb. We do put wood chips underneath them. We put at least 18 inches of wood chips and things that we think that they could go higher than 48 inches. I know that doesn't necessarily work for like nomadic programs, but we are just a stationary outdoor program. And then I would say for things like whittling and other tool use, close proximity to us means 3 feet, or we could in arm's length, like we could help them if we see them gonna hurt themselves or hurt somebody else. And so it's just, for us, it's activity based, not necessarily child based or anything like that, but we do have that in our curriculum when we put it out and teach it to our staff, and so everybody's aware of all the safety, and that is also conveyed to the children before the activity starts.
Great, Kendall. Thank you. And is there any other, Abby?
There's just that let's see here. Mackenzie had a couple comments, and it depends on the trust I have with each child, and that she agrees with Joseph's comment, I think, about relationship and really knowing the children that are in your care. And then Kit shared categories of greatest risk, including, great heights, dangerous tools, dangerous elements, rough and tumble play, rapid speeds. That's interesting. Rapid speeds and disappearing or getting lost. And Kit did have to hop off the call. And as a reminder, she's on the East Coast, so she joined us pretty late this evening. And then Joseph says, if we stay recorded, can we just skip all these rules? There are, I think, 3 rules for recorded programs. So, which there are only 3, I think. So if you stay recorded, then those are the rules that you would have to apply by.
So I do want to take 5-minute break. We're right at 6:30. So I want to go ahead and take our 5-minute and come back. And when we come back, we're going to start with ratios and group size.
And Carol, I don't know if you told the group this before, but I believe the live stream continues, right, while we're on break. So
there's just going to be dead air.
Be off camera.
Unless you want to be
on camera. But yeah, it is the live streaming will continue on during the break
as well. Okay, I think 5 minutes is up, so we can get started again. So to start this section of the meeting, I want to start with the ratios and group size. So the proposed ratio table for the outdoor nature-based programs, we are proposing that preschool age kiddos from 36 months to eligible to kindergarten, there's a minimum number of staff to children. It's a 1-to-6 ratio with a maximum number of children in a group at 16. Younger school age, which is eligible for kindergarten to 8 years old. So 1-to-8 with a maximum number of children in a group at 20. And older school age, 9 years old to 12 years old, it's a 1-to-10 with a group size of 20. It's important to know that in a certified OMB program, you can combine preschool age children through school age in one group, but just like in a traditional licensed fashion in a mixed age group, a certified OMB program must meet the ratio and group size requirements for the youngest child in the group. So what are your thoughts on this proposed ratio table? Any initial feedback? Yes, Mackenzie.
Hi there. Quick question for you. First thing that I see is that like the certified childcare licensed facilities, the ratio is for 36 to school age is a 1-to-10 ratio. And this is 1-to-6 that's being proposed. And then school age is 1-to-15. Here you have it broken down from school age to 8 and then age 9-12. And I'm curious why those ratios have been selected for those age groups. And my other question to that is when a certified childcare program goes to a park or goes on a field trip to the beach, do their ratios change?
And Abby, would you like to take that?
I can speak to some of this. These ratios actually came from Washington. So this is currently what Washington uses in terms of the required number of staff per child. They also differentiated between younger school age and older school age. So we wanted to mirror that. So that's where these age groups and these ratios came, or these age groups and these ratios came into effect. When for certified center, the ratio, you're correct, for preschool is 1-to-10 with a group size of 20. And then for school age, it does not differentiate between school agers. It is just kindergarten through age 12 is 1-to-15 with a group size of 30. These are different due to the environment that an outdoor program is in versus a indoor facility. And just the increased risk of not having four walls around children, and multiple other factors as well. Though I will say that on field trips and when children go to the park in a certified center environment, the ratio remains the same.
So my follow-up question to you is, if a certified place were to come to, say, South Beach State Park, and they were to come on a field trip there, who would be better prepared with a ratio of 1-to-10 in an area that would be a field trip? Children who are actively engaged in outdoor nature-based programming, who have been instructed, who have built the trust, can stay within all of those parameters, or they wouldn't be able to be at an outdoor school, or a group that came for a one-off field trip. I understand and I respect that you have to do this for any person who wants to hang their shingle as an outdoor program, and maybe they're not as experienced as I am. And I'm sure there's people who are more experienced than me. So for those of us who are well prepared for this, these are not the ratios in which we operate. We operate, again, individually based on what individuals we have. Right now, our preschool is 1 to 4 because that's how we feel comfortable with our current students. In the past, we've been 1 to 7. Younger school aged and older school aged, I do not see why that needs to be different in a small group setting. I understand if you're looking at group sizes of 50 or 40 kids outside, but a 1 to 8 or a 1 to 10 is financially trickier, as you all know, in childcare. But also, I don't know, I feel because of the trust I have with my older students, I feel like I can do, a 1 to 12 with my older students. So for our private school, that's what we do. I hope that feedback makes sense. I just want to reiterate that outdoor schools are going to be much more prepared to have a bigger ratio than a random field trip.
Thanks, Mackenzie. And it looks like there were some items in the chat, Abby, that were coming in.
Sure. Joseph says, is this more strict than indoor programs? And yes, it is more strict than indoor programs. And Kendall would like to know what is considered a group. And let me read through because she has some other comments in here. So we are a 1 to 5 ratio, but currently take 20. Could we call them 2 groups of 10? Joseph is sharing some appreciation for Mackenzie's comments and mentioned that making very good points, and that the students are very well prepared and we do training every day, and that 10 would be hard though, and that probably could handle 8 students in the forest any day, including some 3-year-olds, but we are usually at a 1 to 5. So, Carol, do you want to take the group question?
Or if you want to continue, Abby, you can.
We actually, this is something that has been a topic of discussion with our internal rulemaking group. Is really, it's kind of, I don't think we've come up with an exact. It's much easier to define that, of course, in a physical space, like in a center, in a classroom, and saying that there is one group of children in, each classroom. But a group would be, you probably could, as you've described, Kendall, have 2 groups of 10. That would be yeah, it is. I will say it's difficult. We've been struggling with this as well about how in an outdoor environment groups would look.
Yeah, I think that's my concern. Sorry, to jump in. Just
oh no,
as a recorded program right now, with being maxed out at 20 per day, we feel like it's very manageable as long as we're 5 to 1, and it just seems kind of odd that as long as you're not in ratio and I guess you could do it like how certified centers do, like square footage per child or something like that. Does your space offer, 1,000 cubic square feet per child? Is that enough space? I don't know how that would work, but yeah, if we own the property, our hopes is that we could just take more children. That's the whole reason we want to be certified, is we think every child should be able to have nature-based programming in their life. but also we want them to be able to use state funding to access it, because right now it's all private. And so that's like where we're coming from, is we would like to add more classrooms and more spaces, but this is actually taking away from what we're trying to do, unless our space would like be allowed to have 2 groups of 16 or 3 groups of 16, you know, like that kind. If a group is a class, I think just, yeah, definitions around that would help.
Okay, that's great feedback, and we'll take that back to the rulemaking group, and at our next session come back with more definitive answers for you.
Thank you.
Did anything else come in the chat?
Mackenzie says that that I think that many schools are in your situation, Kendall. So agreeing with her last points.
Does anybody else have any initial reactions to this proposal?
Yeah, for a minute before COVID, I had 18 kids. We were doing great. We were just doing great. The kids knew the trails. We had a great year that year. Kids really knew the trails. We had some state aid parents that we had trained, and they were great. And I don't see any reason why you got to be down to 16. We can do 20 kids in the forest, no problem. So I'm not sure, that number 16 seems really arbitrary. Also, I can't stop thinking about Mackenzie's point. Like, for sure, if the Head Start kids took a field trip to Forks Park and met us there, I guarantee you my kids are going to do better. They're going to be safer, stay with the group. They're going to know the routines. Head Start, they're going to have like, 8 volunteers just to keep the kids in. Yeah, they're behind a chain link fence all day. Mackenzie is right. It makes no sense why my kids are in the park every day. Like, obviously we're going to do better.
Thank you, Joseph. I appreciate that. Any other thoughts or comments before we move on? Yes, Rihanna.
Hi, I haven't actually run an outdoor program, so I don't want to speak out of turn here, but listening to this, it just seems like there's kind of this divide in the needs of these experienced outdoor educators versus providing licensing rules that are safe for any random person who wants to start a nature program, because someone who isn't experienced is probably not going to be prepared or know how to prepare kids for some of the hazards of being in an open space, whether that's water, roads, animals. So to me, it seems like what there needs to be is some sort of training requirement. And I know that's a whole other thing. Like, does the state then create training? But I don't know, some kind of almost like Oro steps, where you could kind of have one category of like a simple, like kind of starter outdoor program for staff who are not as experienced, and then that is a more dangerous situation, versus experienced staff, which is then a much safer experience. So again, I don't know what that looks like, but I feel like to me, that sounds like a missing piece of this conversation.
Thank you, Rihanna. That's a good point. Thanks.
It's Rachel here. I hope it's okay to jump in without raising a hand. So I think it's just considering all the different numbers. So recorded programs can have 20 children, correct? And it's a 1 to 10 ratio. I'm curious where the 1 to 6 came from, if there's any kind of research that would back that up, or if it was just kind of a number that you were throwing out to begin the conversation. I also feel just doing the math on if the group size is 16 and the ratio is 1 to 6. So you would need three teachers, is that correct, for 16?
Or
3
two
staff.
and an aide.
Right.
Yeah.
So just thinking through the practicalities of, I think a lot of this will come down to if we want to. So there's a practical piece of just acknowledging that this type of care is already happening with little oversight by very, for the most part, very educated and experienced providers. The safety data, as far as I'm aware of, and the research doesn't show an increased risk for outdoor programs. So I think that that's just important to acknowledge.
Okay.
And then I think just keeping in mind, how will providers, if we want more programs to be licensed, I think just being aware that this would be a major barrier financially to that happening. And yeah, I just feel like it's a really important practical consideration of, do we actually want more of these recorded programs to become licensed so that more children can access them? And so that ideally they're safer. And if so, I think that number is going to be prohibitive.
That's good information. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Yeah.
And in response to your first question, we did collect this information from Washington State, because these ratios and group size is what Washington determined for their rule set that was appropriate.
Thank you. That's right. I forgot that. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah. Oh, you're fine. That's fine. Great. Thank you all for your initial feedback on this. And again, we'll take this information back and then bring it back to our next session.
Carol, there are a couple comments and Sage has a hand raised. I just want to read the comments in the chat that Rebecca says she agrees with Rihanna. And do we have a number of how many outdoor nature-based childcare centers there are in Oregon currently? I think we'd probably need a little bit more information about what you mean, Rebecca, by outdoor childcare centers, like licensed centers that spend most of their time outside, or like outdoor. There is a map actually of outdoor nature-based programs that we have used and seen. And I don't remember the numbers for that, but that was put out by the Willamette Partnership Group when they were looking to move forward the piece of legislation. And Mackenzie says that there are about 100 nature-based schools on the OELA email list. So there's some information for you, but there's also there's a map too. I might see if we can try to find it.
Rachel
that.
provided that to me before.
Okay.
Not putting you on the spot, Rachel, but I think you forwarded that to me. So
yeah. I can email it to the group again. Absolutely. I'll reply all to one of the emails and put that map on there.
Thanks, Rachel. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Sage has a hand raised.
Sage.
Sorry, I was stuck in my Zoom window. I just wanted to say, I know it's not totally a topic, but in hearing these conversations, it does feel like there needs to be maybe some work done to maybe connect with Preschool Promise or other programs to allow people of different income levels access to these outdoor programs. Feeling like that's a huge limitation and is keeping a lot of people out. And then I know like the remark was just off the cuff, but I don't believe that the children in like Head Starts are literally in cages. I think they're doing the best they can with their limited resources, and outdoor educators could try to engage those children in a meaningful way, maybe getting some kind of ability to get kids of other incomes in, which I realize is totally off topic, but that's just what I want to say.
Thank you, Sage. That's great feedback. Thank you.
And Sage, I just want to say thank you so much. And I want you to know that many of us are here and working on this because we want to expand access. That has like been the guiding star of this whole process. Thank you.
And Abby, are there any more?
Just a lot of positive responses to Sage's comment. And yes, that access is the main goal here. And over income applications access, yes, for working parents outside of the home. So just a lot of agreement on why this is so important and why we're doing it. So
Great. And again, thank you. So I'm going to move us along to supervision. The supervision requirements for risky play activities, and we did cover this a little bit earlier. I know that we talked about increased supervision when it comes to risky play, but the rulemaking group, we do think it's important to separate out the typical supervision with more of an active supervision definition. So when you're reading the definition for active supervision, does anything come to mind? And does it convey the level of supervision needed when children participate in more challenging types of activities? Yes, Rhonda.
Well, I have 3 programs and I expect from my staff active supervision at all times, whether we're indoors, outdoors, on a walking field trip or anything. Like just supervision, to me, that it's just an interesting that there's a difference. I expect full active supervision at all times.
Okay. So are there any other elements or things that you could think of, Rhonda, that you would maybe suggest putting in there that your staff are currently doing that you're not seeing here, or that we could include?
The only thing is having staff placed around, like I don't like them to be huddled up all in one place together, just chit-chatting with themselves, like strategically placed around whatever the activity is so that they're within sight and sound of specific groups, and just there's just always an underlying tone of counting. We know we've got 7 kids on this day, we've got 13 kids on this day, and it's just a constant looking at each other. I've got 7, I've got 4, and somebody else saying I've got 2, whatever. Just that constant awareness and constant checking in, and somebody that's right there if somebody has to go to the bathroom, to go inside to use the bathroom. I don't know, just a constant vigilance of where everybody's at all the time, and just that checking of numbers kind of thing.
So scanning and monitoring the environment always.
Yeah, and not distracted on phones, not in their own chit chat about what happened on the weekend, but yeah, and that's just kind of all the time, but especially if they're out there during like a free play time, because we're play based, so they're some are riding bikes and some are climbing on something, and a few are over in the garden. Just always knowing where they all are at any given time.
Great. Good. Anyone? I keep seeing the chat popping up, so I'm assuming that some people are putting stuff in.
Mackenzie says that spreading out is important, however, not always practical for planning purposes.
Okay. Any other feedback that you would suggest that we include into an active supervision? So like Rhonda was mentioning, scanning and monitoring the environment. Can you think of anything else that would be beneficial to include into this? And thinking about in terms of if people are engaged in more challenging activities, or activities like what we discussed earlier, the campfire, the whittling, the using the tools, things like that. Anything that you would think about including?
I would say when we do activities like that, that we limit the number of kids doing it at a time and we rotate groups.
Okay.
So if we've got 12 kids, we might break it down into 4 groups of 3, depending on the activity, or 3 groups of 4. And then the other groups are working on something else or doing free play while those are, well, we kind of do pull-out sessions of whittling, and so that you have a really good direct supervision of the lesson time and and somebody just there for safety.
And Kendall?
I would say that for us, would just like Rhonda said, it's like active supervision is always actually what we're striving for or looking for from our employees, and what we're doing, we're interacting with the children. So like you said, some activities require, I would say, one-on-one supervision. And like that is where we do whittling and things like that. So what we do is then we have the other 9, say, of the group. So the other teacher would get the 4 ratio children to the other teacher and have 9. So they would choose an activity that is manageable for 1 to 9. Maybe that is digging in the sand or playing in the mud kitchen, or simply going on a small little walk around the yurt or something like that. But there is sometimes one-on-one for like supervision.
And anything else, Abby, in the comments?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Well, if there isn't, I'm gonna move us forward to spend some time on the benefit risk assessment tool for the outdoor nature-based programs. And I'm gonna attempt to open this up. We'll see if it works. Oh, no. We'll see if I can get this up.
The state requires lots of authentications.
Yes. And I probably will forget my new password, and then you guys will see me panic. Okay, yay. Here we go. So this is something that Washington State put together. Keep in mind they were in a pilot for almost 5 years, and so that's why we are taking so much of their information, because they have tested out these items, and they have realized that these really do work well. So when looking at this benefit risk assessment, here are the instructions. So you complete the chart below for each location and or activity for which your program has conducted a risk benefit analysis and mitigation procedure. An example is provided. So when you're looking at this assessment, does anything come to mind? Any suggestions on how this could be used in your current environment?
Hey, so I think what you're saying is that if I want to become licensed, I'll have to go through all of our environments and check for hazards, and then think about what my kids are going to do and list every hazard. Is that correct?
So that would be, you would list the benefit. This is what we're proposing. You'd list the benefit in terms of what skill the child or children will be learning from that activity, and then any sort of hazards and risks. So you can go ahead and, as it says here, cross-reference with the definition. And then it's a way for you to confirm that your staff or you are looking at the items that are in your environment to ensure that they are safe for children, because things can change frequently. And so just to ensure that the environment is safe. And if there are some kind of risky items, what are the mitigation procedures if something needs to be removed or altered or corrected?
Okay, so I mean, it all makes sense. I mean, this looks like something I can do for sure, but my question is what if I don't list everything? What if there's a location or activity that's risky that I didn't list?
So the goal would be to do the best you could do to list the items, tree climbing, rock climbing, things like that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it makes sense in principle. I just like if I forgot to write mushroom picking or I don't know. I mean, just there's the number of risks that might occur, I mean, could be very long, and I may miss one of them.
So what we can do is take a look at how Washington is using this. So they require that their outdoor nature-based do the benefit risk assessment and risk management plans, and that the plans must be submitted to their department on a form, which is this form, and they need to be reviewed at the time of initial licensing. So it's an opportunity for you to do that sweep of your environment, find out what the risks are and what sort of mitigation or safety plans that you could put into place.
Yeah.
And then an amended assessment or plan cannot be implemented until the department has approved it. So if you decide to have a different tree, a different climbing structure, a different rock formation, you would want to go ahead and work with your licensing specialist in terms of identifying that and making sure that it's safe.
Yeah, I mean, in principle, it seems very reasonable. I mean, I think I could probably do this. I'm just not 100% sure I'll get it all. If my licensor finds out that I missed something, like, yeah, like it has egg collection here. I would have never thought of egg collection, and then we would find an egg someplace that I never thought of, and then all of a sudden I'm busted because we're collecting eggs, you know.
And Joseph, licensing we're all here to support you through this, and our goal is not to come if you missed and picking up an egg, or something awesome, you guys discover something and you didn't put it on your assessment plan. I think that our agency would work with you on that.
Yeah, I think the benefit to this is Renee has been very Renee has been a real teacher for us. She teaches us, and she's been very kind about helping us understand the rules better. And so, if I know it's going to be somebody like Renee, I can just call her and talk to her, and I feel really good about that.
Well,
I think overall, I think we can do this.
That we're here to help you. We really are. It looks like, Abby, there were some comments coming in on the chat.
Yes, several that Kendall says, I think a chart like this would be awesome. It could be good reference for staff and potential families, etc. So good.
That's wonderful feedback.
Good chart. Mackenzie said this would be helpful for startup programs. Why reinvent the wheel? Why not have a basic template that providers can edit to fit their site and policies? And Rachel is wondering if adoptive, I think it would be good to standardize these types of tools across license types so that outdoor nature-based programs aren't singled out. As per earlier comments, licensed programs go, oh, I'm sorry, someone commented, so it moved, go on field trips without these requirements. Mackenzie says, yes, thank you for that point. Again, Rhonda says nomadic programs will have difficulty with this. And that is, I would say, yes, that would be quite difficult for programs that are traveling often. And Rachel would also like to know, I'd also be curious as to how these forms are working for outdoor nature-based providers in Washington and what their feedback is after using them for a couple years. And then Mackenzie says that I think that more general tree climbing versus a risk plan of a specific tree would be more helpful. And then Rachel agrees and says that one form per activity rather than each specific circumstances seems more realistic.
Great feedback. Yes, Rhonda.
Also, what I have found just in every day, but especially at our outdoor school, is you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you're going to come across. You don't know if a tree branch fell down from the windstorm last night. You don't know if an animal came by and knocked something down or did something like that. So those things are going to be hard to deal with as you come across them. And you're just going to have to really trust the judgment of the teachers that are there to handle the situation. Same thing like with the mushrooms or just anything. I think there's a lot of common sense and you just have to, that's got to play into it. And then because it's going to really inundate all of our licensors if we're doing this, and every time we come across something that isn't in the rules, we're just calling Renee and calling Renee and calling, like it's going to be, they're already, you don't have enough of them as it is. Like, how are they even going to handle the onslaught of so many things if everything has to be pre-approved and then you run across something and then you've got to run it by them? Just a thought.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rhonda. Any other thoughts? Sage, from a parent's perspective, do you think that this would be valuable for you to know? And sorry to put you on the spot.
Sorry, it takes me for a minute to turn it off on. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be good to know. Can you tell me what part specifically you want me to comment on?
No, I was just the overall concept of this from a parent's perspective.
Okay. I kind of lost the train of the conversation. Can you just remind me what we're talking about here?
Oh, that's totally fine. This is a benefit risk assessment, and it goes over the location and the activity or the item. And
oh yeah, okay, yeah, I remember. Okay, yeah. So I think that what I was thinking about it is that for inside based program, obviously, anything can be used in a variety of ways. People are ingenious. Kids are going to be similar. So people are going to good faith effort of thinking of risk. They're not expecting everything in the classroom to be categorized. And of course, not everything in the outdoor environment to be categorized. So I think that putting in a statement about making a good faith effort to identify risk in the environment is done by the provider. And I think that's where it should be looked at. Because that's how they do it in inside classrooms. They're not categorizing every single way you can use a pencil. So it would make no sense and it's humanly impossible. So I think that would be the way I would look at that role as a parent.
Awesome. Thanks, Sage. Are there comments, Abby?
There are just a couple that Rachel says that, again, I think this presupposes that in outdoor nature-based programs are more dangerous, which is not what research shows. And then Mackenzie says, that it's a great point and that the only injuries that we've had have been when we're on a playground. And Mackenzie's like likes or loves the good faith effort comment.
You guys are giving us a lot to think about. Thank you. Well, we are at the end of this session. So as a reminder, what our next steps are is we go ahead and we'll review all your comments and suggestions we received today. We're going to develop the proposed rule language incorporating your suggestions when possible. We'll present the proposed language at the next work group meeting, which is May 21st. And I will send out the agenda and topic discussion prior to the 21st. Typically, I do that on Thursdays because that's an opportunity for me to collect all of our rulemaking thoughts, and then I can put it into an email and send it out to you. One thing that I did forget to mention last time is you will get reimbursed for these sessions. I will explain the reimbursement procedures at the last meeting, but you will be reimbursed for each session you attend. And so I thank those for reaching out to me and asking about that, because that is something that I forgot to mention at the last session. And I'll go over that with you at the very final session. Again, we want to thank you for your time and feedback on the topics that we discussed today. And we look forward to our next meeting on May 21st. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments prior to that, please feel free to email me. Or if you have any sort of policies and procedures that you think would be valuable for the rulemaking group to see, please forward those to me as well, and I will gladly forward those on to the rulemaking team. So if there's nothing else, you are free to go. Thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.